Have you ever noticed how some people can walk into a room and immediately sense that something is off? The energy feels different. A person is pretending to be fine when they're clearly not. A conversation that sounds normal but has an undercurrent of tension running through it. Most people miss these things entirely. They're too busy, too distracted, too focused on themselves. But there is a specific group of people who seem to catch what everyone else overlooks. And strangely enough, many of them have one thing in common. They love cats. Now, before you think this is just some quirky personality trait or internet stereotype, understand something. The connection between people who bond with cats and their ability to read situations others cannot is rooted in psychology. It is about how your brain develops when you spend years learning to communicate with a creature that refuses to make things easy for you. Because that is what a cat does. It does not beg for your approval. It does not perform for treats. It does not wag its tail just because you walked into the room. A cat makes you work for it. And in doing so, it trains your mind in ways most people will never experience. Think about it. When you live with a dog, the feedback is immediate. You call its name, it comes running. You show affection, it shows affection back. The communication is direct, clear, and emotionally obvious. But a cat will stare at you from across the room and you have no idea what it wants. Is it hungry? Bored? Annoyed? Affectionate? You have to read the smallest shifts, the angle of its ears, the flick of its tail, the slow blink that means trust, or the dilated pupils that mean it is about to pounce. You learn to decode silence. You learn that absence of reaction is still a reaction. And over time, this changes the way your brain processes information. Psychologists call this high-context communication. It is the ability to derive meaning not from what is said, but from what is not said, from tone, from timing, from the space between words. And people who love cats become experts at this without even realizing it, because every day they are interpreting a creature that communicates almost entirely through subtlety. And once your brain gets wired to notice these micro signals in an animal, it starts noticing them everywhere, in people, in situations, in the things no one else is paying attention to. But this is where it gets deeper. It is not just about observation, it is about patience. Because if you have ever tried to force affection from a cat, you know it does not work. The more you chase, the more it retreats. The more you demand, the less it gives. So you learn something most people struggle with their entire lives. You learn to let go of control. You learn to be present without needing an outcome. And that shift in mindset changes everything about how you interact with the world. Most people are constantly trying to manage how others perceive them. They are performing, curating, and controlling the narrative. But when you have spent years with a cat, you realize that none of that matters. The cat does not care about your status, your achievements, your carefully crafted image. It responds only to your energy, your authenticity, your ability to exist without needing something in return. And once you internalize that lesson, you start seeing through the performance in others. You notice when someone is trying too hard, when their words do not match their body language, when the smile does not reach the eyes, because you have been trained to look past the surface. And this detail changes everything. People who love cats are not just observant, they're selective. They have learned, through years of being ignored by an animal that only engages on its own terms, that attention is not something you earn through effort. It is something you earn through presence. And that makes them incredibly good at filtering out noise. They do not get distracted by loud personalities or grand gestures. They pay attention to the quiet ones, the ones who do not demand space, but somehow occupy it anyway. The ones who, like a cat, reveal themselves only to those who know how to look.
But here is where most people get it wrong. They think cat lovers are antisocial or introverted or prefer animals to humans. That is not it. It is not about preferring cats over people. It is about preferring depth over distraction. When you bond with a cat, you learn that real connection does not happen on demand. It happens in those unplanned moments. The random night when the cat that usually ignores you decides to curl up on your lap. The morning when it headbutts your hand just because. These moments are not forced, they are earned. And they teach you something most people never learn, that the best things in life cannot be rushed, manipulated, or controlled. This is the part most people ignore. The world is obsessed with instant gratification, instant replies, instant validation, instant results. But people who love cats live in a completely different rhythm. They understand that some things take time, that trust is built slowly, that presence matters more than performance. And because of this, they develop a kind of emotional intelligence that most people lack. They do not panic when someone pulls away. They do not chase when someone creates distance. They do not need constant reassurance to feel secure, because they have learned, through living with an animal that operates entirely on its own terms, that real connection does not require constant proof.
Now, think about how rare that is. Think about how many people you know who fall apart the moment someone does not text back immediately, who interprets silence as rejection, who needs endless validation just to feel okay. Cat lovers do not operate like that. They have been conditioned day after day to accept that affection is not a transaction, that love does not follow a script, and this gives them a psychological resilience that others do not have. But this is where it turns unsettling, because once you start noticing what others miss, you cannot unsee it. You start picking up on lies before they're fully formed. You sense discomfort in conversations that everyone else thinks are going fine. You feel the shift in a room when something unspoken is happening beneath the surface. And this can be isolating, because most people do not want to be seen that clearly. They want to maintain their masks, their defenses, their carefully constructed versions of themselves. And when you are someone who instinctively looks past all of that, people feel exposed around you, even when you are not trying to expose them. This is why cat lovers often feel like outsiders, not because they are weird or socially awkward, but because they process the world differently. They see patterns others ignore. They feel energy shifts others miss. They understand that what people say is often the least important part of communication. And in a world where most people take everything at face value, that makes them strange, uncomfortable, hard to categorize.
But here is the thing. That discomfort is not a flaw. It is a gift. Because the ability to see what others miss is the ability to protect yourself from manipulation, to avoid toxic people before they reveal themselves, to recognize red flags that everyone else rationalizes away. Cat lovers do not get fooled easily, not because they are cynical, but because they have been trained to trust behavior over words, and behavior never lies. And this brings us to something most people will never admit. The reason some people hate cats is the same reason some people hate being truly seen. Cats do not pretend, they do not perform, they do not give you what you want just because you expect it. And for people who are used to control, used to getting their way, used to others bending to their will, that is intolerable. A cat forces you to earn its trust. It forces you to be patient. It forces you to accept that not everything revolves around you. And for a lot of people, that is too much. But for those who love cats, that is exactly the point. Because once you stop needing control, once you stop needing to be the center of attention, once you stop needing constant validation, you become free. Free to observe without judgment, free to connect without agenda, free to exist without performing. And that freedom is what allows you to notice things others are too distracted to see. So if you are someone who loves cats and you've always felt like you pick up on things others do not, you are not imagining it. Your brain has been trained differently. You have learned to read silence, to value patience, to see past the surface. And in a world that rewards loudness, performance, and instant gratification, that makes you rare. It makes you unsettling to some, but it also makes you one of the few people who truly understands that the most important things are often the ones no one else is paying attention to. Because at the end of the day, people who love cats do not just notice what others miss, they understand something most people spend their whole lives avoiding. That real connection, real trust, real intimacy, none of it can be forced. It can only be offered, and only to those patient enough to wait for it.